Okay, I hope you can see my screen.
Yep, you can see.
Yeah, before that, I think Vasant,
Hmm.
do we have any ground rules for the sessions, or I can just simply go ahead?
Yeah, you can start with the introduction and then like what's the agenda for the day, and from there you can proceed with your hands-on.
Okay, cool. And yeah, so guys, my name is Ganesh Padmanabhan. You can actually visit the LinkedIn profile that has been pinned here. But just a quick short intro. I've been in this performance testing and engineering field for close to 14 years by this December. And I worked at various business domains, mainly into BFSI, insurance, and healthcare as well. And mostly into load runner, JMeter kind of tools. I'm still aspired to work on open source tools apart from JMeter as well, of course. Yeah, I mean, in the recent past, in one of the assignment that I worked, I got a chance to work on JMeter and GitLab to help developer teams to push their code and run the pipelines for each of the developer who is going to push the code on everyday basis. And it was quite challenging initially, meaning to get this approach, how we can integrate, how we can give an automated report, everything fully automated without any manual intervention. So that's where this idea kicked in, and I was working on this implementation for a couple of months. Finally got it sorted in the client side, and I thought, like, why not, since I've used everything open source, so why not build the same outside of the client project, and why not share that information? Because um, I also started seeking help when I started thinking about this idea, but there were very limited resources, or there were no much information. There might be information in the Medium blog or in different areas, but there are no certain specific guidelines for a beginner to start with. There were blocks, but it was kind of bit advanced, and not a practical explanation was there. So somebody who wants to start quickly, who don't know about CI/CD tools, especially GitLab, then it would be much difficult. So that's where this idea kicked in, and yeah, that's the reason why we are here. Good. I'll quickly show you like what we will discuss today. And I think the first few minutes, maybe 15, 20 minutes, I will quickly walk you through about I mean, like what has been done for this implementation and how this works, kind of a practical thing. And I'll show you a demo. And then we will open up for questions, because this should be more interactive, and I would like to answer your questions, and we can actually discuss and find new ideas if you want to enhance, right? So what we are going to see today,
Before we start, sorry to
yeah,
interrupt. Before we start, and I just want to try and ask you a few questions so that the people also will be enlightened. So why GitLab? Why not GitHub or any other repositories?
yeah, this was a client requirement, because we use GitLab as a primary source for the development, meaning
Okay.
the repo, I mean, not only the project repo, most of our projects
Mm.
are built based on, I mean, like through GitLab,
Okay. Okay.
all the repositories and CI/CD pipelines, everything is
Hmm.
on GitLab. And
Hmm.
why not other tools? I
Hmm.
don't know. This, I mean, I've been working with the startup for only a couple of months, and
Okay.
I think since the start, they have been using only GitLab.
Hmm.
And this
Okay.
is, and the startup is more developer centric,
Right.
right?
Right. I agree.
To be very honest, they look forward to developers doing everything. So,
Yep. Yep.
and GitLab is more developer friendly. And one other reason why I was interested in sharing this knowledge, because if you think about other CI/CD tools, let's say
Hmm.
I worked
Hmm.
on JMeter as well. Sorry,
Hmm.
worked on Jenkins as well, and few other CI/CDs. There will be always a plugin for
Right.
any of the tools that you want to do, right? You just add a plugin, give the connection details, run the test, and then get some HTML reports. I'm talking only about the basics. I know
Yeah.
people would be interested in talking about how we do distributed load testing and all
Right.
those things. Yeah, that is something different. You will have to definitely you will have to write a code in regardless of any CI/CD tools. But when it comes to GitLab, I think it's all script. I mean, it's all basically works on a simple YAML script,
Okay.
and yeah, this is the reason. I mean, like since the
Mhm.
project has been using
Okay.
for almost since the start of the product is in live state, so
Okay.
we went ahead with GitLab, and even I suggested doing Jenkins, but they
Okay.
said like no, we want to run
Only
everything
GitHub.
on
Okay.
GitLab. Yeah.
Nice. And did you get a chance to add any monitoring tools as well? Like, did you get a chance to do monitoring or it's just testing?
Monitoring as well, Datadog.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. So were you
we
able
can
to integrate
also.
it? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So there is a plugin. Luckily, there is a plugin from Datadog as well, but
Okay.
it was very, very newly introduced,
Mhm.
not very much matured.
Okay.
The first
Okay.
thing I did after joining the company is to integrate JMeter with Datadog and to see the metrics, because there
Okay.
were, I mean, like they are not aware of what is performance testing. They don't know
Mm,
how
mm,
reporting
mm.
works. So I
Okay.
had to find a way with the existing tools. So I integrated with JMeter and Datadog,
Okay.
and then that perfectly works fine. But yeah, end of the day,
Ganesh,
my
just to
my code.
interrupt you, so is there this plugin, whatever Datadog plugin you are talking about, is it a open source plugin with JMeter?
Yes, 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 of course. Anything with JMeter is open source these days. When I talk about plugins.
Okay.
So yeah, it's
So
just a backend listener
maybe, yeah,
plugin.
maybe this resource would be helpful if you can share after the session.
Yeah, let's do this. JMeter plugins. Datadog. Okay, I'll quickly show you. See, the tricky part is when you configure, you might need to know a few things, because see, the only problem with JMeter plugins website is information is there, but when you try to implement that, you will end up having some issues that you need to troubleshoot on your own. Because every setting, I mean, like settings are baseline, but the data that you give in the settings that has been mentioned here could be different, right? For example, they will say like, hey, you give Datadog URL, login intake URL, batch size, and all those things. But um, it says required, right? Not all the parameters are actually required. The main thing is Datadog URL, and here they have given datadoghq.com. I am using Europe version public cloud of Datadog. Then it should be Datadog EU dot Datadog HQ dot EU, something will be there, right? This wasn't available
Yeah, I
here.
think it is in
So
the description column. It's
yes,
there.
I
Yeah.
mean, initially I was just checking this one, and then I thought like, okay, it's not there. Then I didn't look at this description itself. See,
Okay.
when we see a plugin, the tendency is to, yeah, just download and just run it, right? I
Use
mean,
it. Yeah.
we'll just have a very glance look, and then okay, here is where, because you need to scroll this and understand and all those things, right? I mean,
I agree.
technically you might miss. And then I was just seeing like, okay, EU, maybe it might work or not. I was just giving a try, and it didn't work,
Okay. Okay.
because the login intake URL, it says false here. But for me,
Okay.
login intake URL is, I mean, you can still keep it as false, but for me, it didn't work without giving this login intake URL,
Okay. Okay.
right? So it is very much straightforward, very much simple.
Mhm. Mhm.
Only thing is you might end up based on your setup. If it is public cloud Datadog, if you're using public cloud versions, then
Okay.
it's much easier. But if it's in-house, yeah, you might have to change few settings here. And it's very basic report, to be very honest. Meaning it will just give you the number of samplers, error rate, and you can send the logs. And the log size is also, you can send with some sizes here, right? I mean, on a high level, it looks fine, right? So yeah, I mean, like, you have any further questions with related to Datadog?
I'm good, Ganesh. I think we can proceed with the
Yeah.
original plan. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So maybe in next couple of minutes, let me explain what is this all about, and you can start raising your hands, but it will be in the queue, and once I complete, we will start answering the questions based on the queue raised, right? Um, okay, so why we implemented this, I partially answered already, because there was a requirement from the product team saying that, hey, we have like 60 developers, and we have a very huge complex pipelines where once developer, I mean, like each developer will work on their own feature branch. See, I'm not covering from the basics of what is GitLab and how these branches are done. This 1 hour is not enough to explain everything from the basics. So please pardon me if you think that these terms are very new. We can discuss it later, but for now, let's stick to the context of it. I'll try to give high level and then get into the implementation details, but don't get confused. We will learn together. Don't worry about it. So GitLab, on high level, it's a CI/CD implementation tool. It's very developer centric. Most of the things are scripted. For example, if you work with a development team and they develop a code on daily basis, earlier in the traditional way, like 5, 6, or 10 years back, developer develops a code and he sends the package to someone who can deploy that on an on-premise server, right? But the project that I've been working on is a cloud native technologies. So what happens is when a developer develops a code, he actually develops a code based on a feature branch. Understand how Git works. Similarly, GitLab is nothing but uh, a layer on top of GitHub with many features, with the project management and pipelines and all those things, right? Of course, I mean, like there is an interesting news about GitLab also, which means Datadog is maybe acquiring GitLab in future, but that is something out of the context. But I'm just letting you know. Meaning, yeah, this GitLab is going to take revolutionized changes in future for sure, because that's what I see based on my experience and what I've seen in the news that's happening lately, right? So think that developer writes a code and then he pushes that into some branch that is nothing but Git or GitLab branch. In our case, it's a GitLab. So when I say a branch, it's like dedicated for that particular developer who writes the code. He tests, I mean, like he writes the code, he tests his own code, and then he says that, hey, my code is ready, and then I want to run certain levels of test to see whether my code is not breaking the environment, or my code is future ready to get into production, right? For that, we have set several stages of a pipeline. We call that, let's say we call that particular project as XYZ. In that XYZ project, we have like 15, 20 pipelines. Pipelines means like, okay, let's say there will be like okay, let's say one. Okay, I will try to say, let's say something called as pipeline job. Just consider this as a simple job, okay? Don't have to think too much. Think like a bad job or something. A job is nothing but it executes a task that you have written in a script formats, right? So there is a job 1 to 10. What this job, all these jobs does is one job will do a unit level testing, one job will do integration testing, the other job will do, like, there are certain stages. It will do code scanning and all those things. One of the part for us to do is test. There was a job called test, let's say test performance. So what it does is picks up complex, I mean, like there is a certain performance test suite where it consists of complex scenarios of that particular application. Only very commonly used and complex scenarios, mainly through REST APIs. We didn't do front end; it's all through REST APIs. You generate an authentication token and then pass the token to call the complex scenarios using REST API calls. So this performance job consists of like 20, 25, or 30 APIs created through JMeter. Okay. created through JMeter with all guidelines or best practices that is followed already. And then end of the day, they want to run in GitLab, which is the code source code repository for this project. Okay. And then why using for a long time, and there is a big no for any other tool to be introduced. Okay. And end of the day, when this developer click on this particular job, he needs to know two things. Okay. What happened in terms of performance response time? So there were only two clear goals, right? Because end of the day, we cannot do a load test. I mean, I strongly believe doing load testing on kind of pipelines with heavy loads running on distributed load. I am strongly against it. If you know, unless the infrastructure is super powerful, then I agree. But in my case, it's not very powerful, though. I mean, like, though I can get a 16 GB or 64 GB RAM, the processors are not very good, and it's a different cloud, and I always seen the response time variations between running the JMeter script on my local machine versus some other cloud versus GitLab Kubernetes runners, right? So I'm not getting into the topic for now, but this is what it is. So we are not running load. This is kind of an early performance testing, so very low volume. Okay, let's say 5 users or 10 users. So we will check two clear goals. One is performance response times, and the other one is if there are errors, and then baseline comparison deviation. We will have a baseline response times static file compared to the current run, and we will have a comparison to it, and we will see if there are any deviations. Guys, I'm just sharing my real-time experience. That might maybe that might look raw, but that's what it is. So sometimes you might not get the real-time practice experience like this in kind of like, even if you join tutorials or tutoring or join any course. So it will be raw in my explanation, but feel free to ask your questions once I complete. Okay. Baseline comparison if there are any deviations, and that is the only thing that they were doing. They were something already existing before I joined, but they did through Selenium automation. There were Selenium API scripts that was already available. So what someone did is they used JMeter DSL. Somebody who doesn't know what is JMeter DSL, it's the programmatical version of one of the plugin, not the plugin. It's a framework. It was introduced by Abstracta, if I'm not wrong, and you can programmatically run JMeter through this JMeter DSL plugin, and you can generate JUnit reports, and someone in the organization already did in that format already, but that was not reliable because they were using the Selenium API scripts, and the sequence of all those scripts had issues with the application. So I'm not getting into detail, but what I did is I created standard JMeter scripts in the same way, but with multiple steps with error handling and all those things. So it was much more robust. And yeah, earlier they were just doing plain simple baseline comparison. That's it. There will be a tabulated HTML page where it says, hey, these are 25 APIs, these are your current runs, these are your baseline, and this is the deviation. That's it. So, but when I started working on, I created my own JMeter standalone scripts with error handling and all those things, and also integration with the Datadog. I'll also mention it here. Datadog, so that we can do a trend line in Datadog as well for the last 15 days. The data get aggregated, so we can also do a trend line. And also, what I did is I did a baseline comparison with an HTML report with deviations, and also did some modifications on the filtering part. Let's say I don't want to show all the metrics which is not really interested for the developers. So this solution is mainly focused on for the developers to take a quick decisions, right? So I had to do some filtering of the report. In JMeter, you can do a filtering of the report using synthesis, if I'm not wrong. But as I said, this particular implementation, everything has to be automated, and using the synthesis pipeline and all those things would get complicated. So what I did, rather, I wrote a Python script. You can filter the labels, saying that, hey, filter the labels only more than 500 milliseconds, right? And then put it in the HTML report. And also Gen AI analysis to give some recommendations. So it is also important that see, a developer will spend only 2 to 3 minutes in that particular job. Okay, if something goes wrong, they also need to know what is the information, what failed, why it is failing, where we need to look, right? I'm still working on this one to enhance it, but I have a high-level scenario to show it to you here. We can always enhance it based on our needs, based on the prompt that we need. I used Gemini AI model. I tried many other models, but I wanted to use, my company uses Google Suite, so I used Google Gemini so that I can also use paid versions in future. So this solution is more centric to based on the tools available within the client, right? So otherwise I would have used LLMA 3. That was super good when compared to other. But if someone is looking for open source, then I would say LLMA 3 from Facebook, if I'm not wrong. That is super powerful actually, but you need to work a lot on that, meaning you will have to refine the prompt in such a way that it gives you refined results for you. And then I also integrated with Slack, and the developer also needs to see he will not see into the pipeline unless and until he gets a Slack notification. Okay, end of the day, it's developers productivity. So for a moment I thought, like, I don't know whether I came here to solve a performance problem or to ensure developers productivity, right? So the jokes apart, but that was the reality. But performance was also on the higher priority, but I also ensure that developer is not spending too much time on this one and take a quick decisions whether it is a go or no go, right? So Slack notification using webhook URL. So it's pretty much straightforward. You just need to have a Slack channel for yourself, and you can go to slack.com/API to your particular channel, and then get the webhook URL. And then you need to write a script to send the test status with some coloring code or something. Okay, so this is end-to-end implementation and quick gist about it. Let's quickly go into what's happening. So anybody is very new to GitLab or never used GitLab? Can you just quickly comment here? Like, I just want to know how many people are very new to. Let's see the queue.
Yeah, I believe most of the people never use GitLab like what we do for GitHub. So yep, I think 90% of people except you, I believe, most of the people do not know how the GitLab works.
Okay. Yeah. So okay. So that's fine. For now, as I said earlier, just simple. Don't get confused. Simple as that is, think about GitHub, git pull, push, whatever that you do in GitHub, it's just the same. On top of this, GitHub has, I think, got inspired from GitLab, I guess. So maybe GitHub Actions. I don't know the history details, but GitLab is famous than GitHub Actions, if I'm not wrong. But now it is getting very famous, very effectively used, because most of the organizations use GitHub, and then they started to migrate to GitHub Actions. right? And GitLab is also equally famous and heavily used in the last 6 years, if I'm not wrong. I've been using GitLab for almost 4 years, but on and off. But this is what you need to think for right now, right? Uh, Similar to GitHub, you have a code repository, right? Only thing is you need to have a .gitlab YAML file, which is like an operator for the entire GitLab. So whenever you try to run something in GitLab, the main source of file is the GitLab CA YAML. Okay, and this YAML is, this file is mainly like it's an YAML script. So it's like, let me, I just want to show you the basics first. Okay. Um, it's a kind of an XML, but it's more on the syntax based. Okay. Even if you make some um, indent errors, that will that will create a lot of issues, right? So basically it's an XML version of a script. I'll just quickly show you. um, there will be, this is how the skeleton looks, right? Sometimes it is plain English, sometimes it looks like a plain English, but you need to know what are the steps that or the guidelines that you need to follow, and certain things. So this is all together a separate topic, but as I said, think about GitHub. It's the same function as GitHub. You need a GitLab YAML file, which is a XML script just for now. Think like that, and you need to define and if you need to make a pipeline kind of thing, meaning kind of a jobs, it works as, let's say um, it's like an executor, and you have like, you are asking the executor to do to do certain tasks, and those tasks are nothing but jobs, right? And jobs are nothing but, think that it's a different stage. Okay, so in our case, we need to have a JMeter, right? So let's see. Yeah, we need to have a JMeter to implement this. We need to have a JMeter. We need to have something for Git Datadog, and we need to run the test. We need an executor. We need to compare the test, and we need to do analysis, right? So basically, we need some kind of stages, right? Or um, jobs. Okay, so we need to test. So test stage is nothing but, um, you can prep what you need. What we need is JMeter and all those things that I explained, and then you run the test in this stage. So, and then once the test is completed, there is the result file that gets generated. Then you have another job you ask the GitLab to do, is to do the analysis. So what do you do in the analysis? Process the JTL file from the JMeter, and then do the processing of the results, and do the filter of what are the conditions that we have written, and then provide an HTML report with some GenAI analysis and some Slack notification. So this particular stage, as I said, it will do the task of prep and testing, and this analyze stage will do the task of analyzing the results and sending notifications. So what you have learned so far is, you know what is GitLab. You can put your code repositories over there, push the code repositories, and then ask GitLab to do certain tasks. For that, you need GitLab YAML file, and you need to define the stages. And inside the stages, you need to give all the specifications, right? And then let's first see what's this repo is all about, right? Okay, I know that I need a GitLab YAML file to control the entire repo and the pipelines, and you also, it's a repository, right? You need to have all the other details that you need. as part of this code repo. It's same as GitHub as I mentioned earlier. So it's the JMeter script, and then you need a baseline result. As I said already, I'm using a baseline result static. So static file. What you will have here, I ran the script locally and then took the JDL file and then pasted here, right? So this is one file that you need, and there is a Python script. This script is nothing but basically it does all the thing that you ask GitLab to do on the stage analyze that I mentioned earlier. And this is the CSV file that I'm passing in my JMeter script. So this is also something quite interesting, right? So when you run a JMeter, you might have a lot of CSV files when you parameterize or you want to do something on the file operations. Then how do you do that? Locally, you will have the local repo path. Similarly, how do I do that in running in an automated fashion? People have these questions, right? Simply put that files in the base path of your repo. It could be any CI/CD pipelines. Always have it in the base path repo, and uh, yeah, always have it in the base path repo, and make sure in the script you also change that. Just put the file name in your CSV config, data config, and just go ahead. Nothing wrong will go in that configuration, in that setup. For sure, I've tested multiple times in different formats as well. It works straightforward. So because I've seen this question everywhere in all the forums, but yeah, but it's straightforward. What I'm trying to explain here is at the basic level, meaning somebody doesn't know what is CI/CD tools and they want to run pipelines, or they want to run automatically using GitLab. This is the basic setup that you need. I understand there might be people who might be interested in, hey, I already know this, but I want to know how I can run a distributed test, right? Um, I'm not against to a distributed test in pipeline, but first understand why there should be a need to run that first. If it is an extremely large scale test, go for it. For me, one machine is more than enough. If I have a one machine with 16 gig or 64 gig, more than enough. I really didn't need multiple distributed or the distributed config. But I do have a local setup that I can run. But if you want to do something distributed, I'm also working on that. What you need to do, simple as that, just to give you a high level intro on that. Maybe in next session we can cover that. You need to have two additional files on top of this. The reason why I'm explaining this now is just to avoid the just to have the continuity so that you will get the gist as well. You need additional file called Kubernetes manifest file, because everything will be handled via Docker and Kubernetes. And you can also have a Docker file separately also. But for now, just think that you need to have one more additional file, Kubernetes manifest, where you will have to mention like how many master replicas, how many slave replicas that you need to have, and how we need to put. Right, and I couldn't continue this because I was not having any cloud what is that subscription yet to my public login. But my thought process is to use AWS or Hetzner cloud. It's much more cheaper. I would use Hetzner. You can Google about Hetzner cloud. It's one of the cheapest cloud that I've ever seen, and it's much faster as well. So that I can create a Kubernetes cluster, because in order to run this test, we need a Kubernetes cluster. And I need to give that cluster names in the config files. There is one more file that we need to add, and then this Kubernetes manifest files takes the cluster details and then creates the Docker versions or the Kubernetes versions of JMeters, Kubernetes Docker versions of JMeters, and then it works as the same way that I'm going to explain in my main repo. Right? Just have a thought about it. It is doable. It's not very difficult. for now, understand the basics first. That's why I wanted to share this thought with share this session with the basics, and then we can go to this complex scenarios later. In a different session, of course. So these are the repo and the files that you need. Now let's go into GitLab. So as I said, you need stages. See, GitLab has some certain structures, okay, and certain these are called as keywords. Let's say this image, variables, before script, stages, and then these are the keywords that you need to give. Keywords and syntax, right? Okay. For example, run JMeter test. Okay, it's not a keyword. It's a keyword, but it's just simple as like you're giving a name to a test. That's it. What you need, what is the main thing that you need to know is you need to have some image, right? Some image to run on this GitLab, because GitLab, end of the day, GitLab has some runners. In our performance terms, it's a load generator. In JMeter, it's master slave. So think that GitLab will have, when I run a pipeline, GitLab will have some runner, which is equivalent to load generator. And that runner needs some package or the image to run. For example, if my laptop is a runner for a GitLab or a load generator for GitLab, I need to have all the packages ready, right? For example, if I have the JMeter, for example, whatever I've mentioned here, if I have the JMeter Python libraries already available in my laptop, and I'm saying this GitLab to use my laptop as a runner, then you don't need the script at all, right? Rather, what I'm saying is, hey, GitLab runner, use a public image, which is Python, create a Docker image for this. Create an image on top of this runner. I think it uses Linux. It's a public repo, right? I mean, not a repo. I mean, it's a public GitLab, and in my repo, I'm asking the GitLab runner to use this public image, and then sending some variables. These are like parameters. So what I'm saying is, use the JMeter version 5.5. I think that's the most stable, and sending some Datadog dashboard URL. But right now, I think you might not see that in the HTML, but in my original implementation, I also added the GitLab URL so that the developer can also look into the Datadog dashboard. For now, the Taurus version you can ignore because I had implemented I used three approaches using plain simple JMeter and JMeter and Taurus and distributed. Okay, for now I'm going with plain JMeter, and then in the before script I'm saying, hey, in this image, go and install JRE, because that's needed for us, JMeter, and then it installs. It downloads the JMeter and unzips that, and then moves that into a base path. And then I'm also using Python version. I mean Python 3.9 with libraries. Here is what you need to know. Okay. Pandas library. See, this is kind of a mini data science. Okay, in most of the data science courses, people use Pandas, Matplotlib, Seaborn, Jinja, and yeah, these four are essentially used in any data science projects to do the visualization, data manipulation, and all those things. I have a description about all these libraries. You need to know why these are used. Otherwise, it's not much helpful. I'm going to speed up my explanation because we don't have much time left. Quickly, I'll go here because I want to quickly show you a demo as well. Okay. And then, as I mentioned, 2 stages. So I'm going to, you are seeing the test stage. So in the test stage, you need to give the stage name. That is nothing but run the JMeter test. That's how the syntax works. And then you need to give the stage. That is nothing but the test. And then these syntax are like common. This is like by default. For example, if you use a template in JMeter, you get an HTTP recorder, and you get the threads automatically and all those things, right? Similarly, when you declare a stage, you need to, when you declare a stage, you need to have the stage name, script, artifact, and then the path. So script is mainly like a kind of an scripts where you can try to automate things. Stage is to just control different stages, and the stages name, and then artifacts is nothing but the repository path. Something you're running here and you need to access all those files, then you need to give artifacts and make sure this expire in is also there. Otherwise, the data gets vanished. So, and then the next stage is analyze. Okay, I'm saying, hey, this is just a description, right? As I said earlier. So the stage analyze, I'm saying, hey, use this script, Python JMeter analysis .py. This is nothing but the file that I already mentioned, and it's available in my repo. And I'm saying, hey, JMeter Python run. I mean, like Python command run this JMeter analysis Python script with the arguments results.jtl file and baseline results.jtl. So these are the two arguments that I'm already sending through my command. So what is this results.jtl? That gets generated from the JMeter test. What is this baseline result? It's already available in my repo, and it is a static one. And what I'm saying in this Python script, I have actually mentioned generate a final HTML report, and I'm trying to access that in the artifact path. Okay, I will stop here.
Okay.
I will. I mean, like quickly, if quickly, I think one more. I think I'll take two more minutes to explain. Yeah, I think. Yeah, maybe if you're not talking, please go on mute. I'll quickly cover the Python script that is important. That's the essential part of this pipeline, because that's the whole framework which controls everything on the analysis part. So guys, this is like kind of a 2 months work, and there is no hard stop rule to how to do this script. It's just the daily I used to work on this one, so it is an enhancement of daily work which has been done for the last couple of months. It can be fine-tuned, it can be enhanced, it can so feel free to comment, but this is not the guideline. I mean, I would say for now this is a simple script to start with, but this is not the guideline if you want to do something on the analysis, or you want to do a complex scenario. This is specific to my project. Maybe this is not applicable to any of your project, but this is a starter, or gives you information to start with, and you can definitely enhance on top of this one. Okay, but this is specific to the project that I worked. Okay, and I strongly suggest saying what I'm saying is you can. This is not public yet, but you can take the inspiration from this and you can start developing. Okay. What I've done here is I'll go through the comments and I quickly tell you what is it all about. Okay. I'm applying certain variables in the Python scripts, saying like, hey, I want you to take my response time, max response time is 10. The reason why I'm giving this constants here is I told you, right, I want to control my test results and show only filtered results. So that's why I'm trying to give constants here, saying like 10 milliseconds. These are like hard rules, and I get this requirement from my product owners. Okay. Max response times, max error rate, filter threshold. Why this is here? Based on this, I will create a report. Based on this, notifications will be sent, and to avoid noises as well, right? We don't have too much panic. If you don't give this threshold, there will be a lot of things going on in the report, and the developer will not be able to decide what's going wrong. It's a go or a no go, right? That's why we have to set this simple three set of rules that we followed. Okay, so and then Google Gemini that I'm using, that's the AI model. Yeah, we will cover that. Okay. Just give me a few more minutes, I'll complete that. Yeah, Gen AI model, and I'm using Gemini Pro. and then I'm loading the file. I'm going to give you a quick gist about what's happening here so that you get a understanding of how the script works. You process the JTL file, and then you get the timestamps and the success scenarios, and then there are many functions that has been written here, and then finally I'm passing those variables, right? So if you have a result file, what do you need to do, right? So you load the result file, understand what are the metrics are there, and see what are the metrics that you need to show, and 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 what you need to compare, and which compare, uh, and to which file you need to compare to, and how you can take the success and error rate and filter it. So written functions for everything. Okay, now this code definitely need to be optimized. I'm also not convinced in terms of the efficiency of the code, but yes, but I've written the functions in certain way that each and every stage is covered, right? So I'm calculating the metrics based on the metric that I need. Okay. And then there was a blocker in the scenario, where initially when I tried to calculate this metrics, it was showing all the labels as part of the JMeter scripts, meaning I might have a transaction controller, and it was giving me in each and every transaction control, you might have 5 to 10 requests, right? And it was giving each and every URL or the samplers results. And it was very difficult. The report was very huge and wasn't looking nice. So I had to group by label and aggregate that, and it was able to give me the way that I was looking for. Meaning, like, if I use a transaction controller, it gives at the transaction controller level. And then I'm doing a comparison data where you compare with current and baseline. With certain metrics, I'm comparing only through the average and the mean values, and then doing some analysis. And also, after comparing, I'm also giving only the filter threshold values. I'm not giving all the labels. Rather, I'm saying, hey, compare only this filter threshold. So what is the filter threshold? Give me something which is only greater than 10 milliseconds or 100 milliseconds. I'm just taking like arbitrary values here, right? So that filter is being done here, and I'm doing Gen AI analysis. So what I'm doing in the Gen AI analysis is I'm sending the metrics. So Gen AI analysis needs the metrics and the labels. So, and the reason why is I need two things. I need the detailed observations and recommendations for labels that are zero success rate, which means it has not even run once and there are some issues. So I need to know the details. So that is one thing. And the other one is give some recommendations on the other criteria that I said is SLA, which has breached, right? So give some details about that, right? So you give these prompts to this model, it analyzes your metrics, and then it gives you the response in the text format, right? So whatever we have seen so far is everything in the functions, and it's raw, right? We need something in a legible and lucrative way, right? So whatever I've done so far, I'm creating a HTML report, simple HTML report with metrics. See, I'm not even using anything from the JMeter HTML report itself. If you have seen my JMeter command, I've just used only the customized report. Okay, and so it's my own HTML script where I'm passing everything in terms of metrics and all those things, and then comes the Slack notification. So as I said, I used the webhook URL, and I'm sending the message as a status saying that what is the test is all about, what is the response time, what is the error rate, fail labels, and all those things. This will be sent as a notification. And then finally, the main function is being called with whatever the functions that we have written. Everything will be called. Everything will be processed and called here, right? So it's like the main function where you call all your sub functions and try to send all the details, whatever is required in the arguments, right? So this is just about it. I mean, like, I'm not sure about keeping this as an open source yet. I need to get some permissions for it, and also we are thinking about converting this into a workshop or something. Still in discussion, but this is a gist, right? But nothing stops you in trying to do it by yourself. I did it learning by doing. Okay, every day I used to sit and learn, not from the basics, but rather, yeah, I mean, like in the age you can use chat GPTs and all those things, right? Try to start with the basics, and definitely you can do the same by yourself also, but keep the goals clear and you go stage wise, right? Like keep your requirements clear, and based on the requirements work on stage wise, and then you can write the script. But have some basic knowledge about Python and fundamentals of coding, right? That's as simple as that. Okay, let's go to the pipeline. Now we have everything, right? So now go to the pipeline. You need to go to pipelines, and then let's run some pipeline, run the pipeline. It will take some time. Okay. So you see, right, there are two stages. One is test, one is analyze. Okay, that we have seen in the YAML script. So what happens here? It sends a Docker image. Maybe you can quickly see that. I'll quickly grab a cup of water and we'll be back. See the public GitLab, right? It's not that performant, so it takes a lot of time. But I wanted to show you when you run a pipeline, what happens. And we didn't allocate any load generator or GitLab runner, right? It automatically allocates, and it tries to, okay, come on. It tries to create a Docker image. We have given a Docker image as Python, right? So preparing the Docker machine in the GitLab runner, and then checking the repositories and all those things, and then it starts to download our project into the GitLab. I mean, our project already there in the GitLab, but it has to get the repo to process all those things, right? And then it starts to download the package, whatever we have given, and it downloads the JDK, and it downloads the JMeter, and JMeter is still downloading, right? So no, it started. JMeter and this, yeah, see this command is running, and it is running some test already, right? And then I didn't see this error in the past, but let's see. Okay, it's still running, right? So maybe there is a plugin, some problems are there. The script is I took from internet, so could be something a problem with, it's an exception, that's it. So it's still running, right? So if you see here, it's still running, and it will take at least 5 minutes if I'm not wrong. And for the analyze, it will take another 5 minutes, right? So in the meantime, let this screen be there, but I want to see the chat. Is it mandatory to give the Gemini AI model details inside the script? Yes, of course. In which script? Yes, the whole thing is controlled by a Python script, and you need to give the details. You need to give the keys, API keys. I actually set that as a variable, and you need a Google Gemini login, and you need to log into Google Gemini and get the API key and pass it over here. But there's no cost, right? So sharing the GitLab and the code will be helpful. Yes, we'll see through that, but I'm not sure. I don't have much information to share for now in terms of how this can be publicized, this repo, but we'll see. But I really wanted to have this open source, but there are certain things attached to it, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, see, even if I do the give the code source, right, You can take the inspiration, but you need to know how this can be done, right? So it will take some time. Okay, just give me one moment. Oh, though the charger is attached, but I still don't see the charging. Okay. Is it mandatory? Okay, sharing GitLab. Okay, okay. There is something that I posted, and what is the maximum load you tested using this setup? Okay, 50 concurrent users. That's the maximum load. But I have a GitLab run. I mean, like in public, I've not tested more than like 10, 20. But in my original implementation, we have gone up to 100 also. Okay, but I use a runner which has heap size that you allocate, right, end of the day to JVM. So um, explain the baseline file. So the baseline file, very simple. I ran the same script locally, and then for now, right? So ran the script locally and took like multiple users iterations and took that response time. But in real time, this baseline metrics is something you need to get from the product owners, right? Mm, can you please share the plugin for JMeter framework? Which plugin, Mahesh? Maybe you can unmute yourself and share some thoughts on this question if you're still there. Uh, okay, so yeah, I think that's all the questions that we had. So now we have the test completed, and it says, okay, the job is succeeded. Something you said to write in the JMeter. What I said is there were some previous implementation before I joined the organization. What they did is they used Selenium API scripts to run on JMeter Java DSL. This is a very famous Java JMeter framework, which heavily helps in programmatically running the JMeter. It's super helpful actually, but you cannot run load test. I mean, you can still run the load test, but I mean, like it's very hard. See, this kind of programmatically running JMeter plugins or frameworks, right? What happens is it might not be suitable for complex applications. The one that I worked is a very, very complex applications where you will have JSON body, which is huge. Controlling that to programmatically can be done. It's complex, and the response sizes are like 14 MB, and payload size is 14 MB, and payload response size is 14 MB. It's very hard, right? So if you need to do some kind of response level correlation, I mean correlations or refactoring and all those things, my application was heavily dependent on sequence of APIs and the previous response values. So it was not easier, right? But they used through Selenium scripts, because Selenium scripts already have, like, they already had a framework of like hundreds of APIs, so it was much easier for them to implement. But end of the day, it was not reliable. Okay, so yeah, GitLab works as Jenkins, right? Yes, it is same as like Jenkins, same as like GitHub Actions in terms of concept, but definitely there are different features, different things to it. Circle CI, there are many other things, right? So there are so many these days. So, but for now, but if let's see, right? CI/CD tools ranking. Let's quickly see that, right? Google Cloud Build, Vitrise, OpenShift, Jenkins, Azure DevOps. When it see why GitLab stands out it, and this implementation is not there anywhere, because see, when you go to Azure DevOps, maybe Vasan can comment, you might have some plugins, and I think it's there. Jenkins also, there is some plugins when you want to integrate something into as a performance test, right? So GitHub Actions mostly scripted. Okay, not sure about Travis, Spinnaker, and Circle CI. So, but most of the time there is some plugin is there, but in GitLab If you pay, you can use some plugins, but open source, no. And GitLab is more developer friendly, right? End of the day, you need to write scripts, then we get scared, and then most of the people uh, first hesitant to start with these things. So yeah, let's see. Let's get back to the pipeline, and I think if you go to the jobs, yeah, the job is done, and let's see. So you need to see what are the pipelines that is run. We ran this pipeline just now, right? So, okay. This is the main pipeline, and there were two jobs. So one is run JMeter test. This is a description of the test, right? Inside the stage test, there's a description, just nothing but giving a name to the test. So we already saw this. It creates a Docker image. It creates all the packages that you need, runs a JMeter test, and then what happens? If you go to the browse, it will give you the results.jtl file. Okay, and this results.jtl file gets processed. And then the next stage is analyze results, right? So here is where I think it took for almost 5 minutes. Actually I need to optimize this because the goal is the developer will not spend not more than 5 minutes. So my entire jobs, whatever the jobs that I have, it should complete in 5 minutes. So apart from doing performance testing, implementing performance pipelines, I also need to make sure that this job is performant, efficient, that it gets completed. All the jobs get completed within 5 minutes. So as I said, it includes all the packages. So there are some unwanted packages which gets loaded. I need to remove that. Apologies for that. But again, it creates a Docker image. It takes the same image as Python, and it's a base image, right? When you say image Python 3.9, whatever stages that you have, it always uses the same image. And then it installs all the packages. It's kind of heavy loading because of Google Gemini, and it includes all the packages as well. It takes a little bit of time, but it's worth it. And yeah, it does collect all the packages, and it will run the Python command that we already mentioned, saying, hey, compare this result.jtf file, then generated as part of this test, and compare with the baseline, and send a Slack notification. It is being skipped because I don't have a Slack in the public. Okay. And then it's all done, right? So this job is also succeeded. Then I want to know where is my HTML report, and you go to the browse artifact and then click on the HTML report, and then boom, it redirects. It gives a plain HTML report saying, hey, this is the overall metric. It highlights, I wanted two metrics for the developer to analyze. What is my SLA compliance? Is it good, bad? Of course, I need to work on the cosmetic things. It should not show in red. It should yeah, it is correct actually, because in the public I've given only 10 and it's correct. Uh, it should be 100%, right? So error was 100%, all good, because error rate was 5% acceptable and all those things. And if there are any fail labels, it will include what are all the fail labels of the transactions and what is the error count and which transactions has failed. And there is a section where it says it's a comparison report for the transactions which are the labels which is greater than 100 milliseconds. So like there are certain transactions. So you might see some NA because maybe the baseline file is wrong, right? But just see, there are two things, simple as that, baseline versus current, compare that difference and what is the change. So in this way, you will quickly know what is the difference, if there is any performance degradations, and if there is missing the threshold on all those things, right? So, okay. And also I'm giving a filter. So our filter works here, right? So there is one filter where I'm saying like filter only things that is greater than 100 milliseconds, so that I can avoid certain things which is not required, because that's certain transactions are already performant. give me only things that is getting degraded, and then comes the JA analysis, right? So what it says, I need to mimic something in such a way that it also gives detailed information, but right now I didn't try that here. But in my original implementation, what happens is if there are any observations related to zero success rate, it gives the label and says what is the problem, meaning, okay, your success rate is zero for this label because there was an error occurred in your particular label with the with the error like this, because end of the day the errors is also analyzed in your JTL report, right? It's a raw report. And then detailed recommendations for response times. It will just at least say, like, highlight when developer can quickly go here and see what are the observations of saying, okay, these are the labels which took more than this seconds, but we need to, if we need to drill down, I also attach a Datadog dashboard URL here where the developer can go to that particular service and then see what has happened, because Datadog has an observability and he can clearly see why there is a degradation and which component has a problem. So I think that's the end of it. So if we have any questions, we can start discussing that. I think we actually exceeded the time limit, but yeah, at least the remaining 30 people are still interested, and we can discuss if you have any questions. In future, I will implement the distributed load testing um, and enhance further more things in this. And in terms of keeping this open source, it's still not decided yet, but we'll see through it. In case if we need a kind of a workshop or something, because see, you also need to know how this can be done on hands-on, right? So that is also something we can also do from our end. I mean, like, yeah, I can discuss with Vasant and we can see if there is a 2-hour workshop needed for this, so that we can do a prep work, and then in that workshop you can do hands-on by yourself by implementing this and understand how this works, so that you can gain some confidence and real-time experience.
Yeah,
So
hi
I think I'll
Ganesh.
stop here.
Yeah, hi Ganesh.
Yeah,
Guru here.
yeah, I'm good, Nada.
Yeah. So actually, as I know, GitLab is for code depository, right? But here, in what is the objective of our performance testing doing with GitLab CI/CD actually, Ganesh? I'm a bit confused actually.
So it's not only GitLab, I mean, GitLab is not only for repo, right? So if you're having, so why we are having GitLab here, right? So to have our code repository and also provision and also do everything in an automated way. Okay, let's take a scenario. Tomorrow, somebody asks you to create a script, okay, and they don't want to. I mean, like JMeter script, for example, and they don't want to keep that in your system itself. It should be accessible to everyone. Meaning tomorrow, if someone from infra, someone from development want to run your test, okay, they don't want to keep waiting for resources or someone to run the
Yes.
test. Okay, so you, how do you do it, right? So you will have your repo, JMeter repo in GitLab, and create jobs on top of that. To say why we are creating jobs is to instruct the GitLab to say, hey, do certain tasks in a certain way, and this is the end result that I need. For that, as I said, you need this GitLab YAML file you need to write a script and say GitLab to do the actions for you. So basically, this is continuous integration, right? You say that you want to integrate to someone in your development team, and they also enable themselves to run all these things by themselves and also see what is happening in the centralized way. That's why the CI/CD tools comes into picture, right? Basically,
Yes.
end of the day, it's an automation. It's not only CI. End of the day, somebody is going to check all these things, meaning all the tests in terms of jobs or pipelines, and they give a go to the production, and it will be automatically deployed. See, I'm not going into the details of on-premise things, because there might be still people doing things manually also, but I can see the fast growth of doing everything automatically in an automated way of continuous integration, not continuous deployment. Only startups do that, but there are many other banking also did continuous deployment as well. Sometimes it's dangerous, sometimes it's not. I mean, even in the continuous deployment, people do it through manual check-in. But to answer your question, GitLab is just not a repo. it keeps the repo, but also does some actions for you in an automated way so that you get some end results in an automated way as well.
So Ganesh,
Okay.
one question. So instead of GitLab, we can also integrate the same thing with Jenkins as well, Jenkins pipeline as well,
Yes,
right?
yes, you can do the same thing in any CI/CD tool. Maybe the certain structures, certain thing, the implementation concept is the same. But when it comes to Jenkins, probably you might need to know how the syntax works in Jenkins. Other than that, it's the same. If you run the same Python script in Jenkins, it should work and it will work. And in Jenkins, there are certain stages that you need to follow. Like in Jenkins, it's more UI, but in GitLab, it's more coded. That's it, as simple as that. Meaning
Yes.
the configuration of the pipelines. So who else has have some questions?
Hey, thanks, Ganesh, for the session. Actually, how did you compare those baseline results? Was that baseline GTL already uploaded? I just missed that part.
Okay, so let's see here, right? So what I did, see, this is all arbitrary data, right? So just for the sake of the demo, what I did, the same pet store script, I ran it locally for multiple iterations so that I can get the same transactions, right? So and got the JTL file. I just uploaded here. That's it. And then I am sending these. If you see the connectivity, I'm sending these two files as a variable. So this baseline result is already there in the base repo, and this result.jtl file is already there from the results that I'm sending here. So which means both the files will be available in the base repo, okay, in the runtime. And then it picks up, so these two values, when you run that command, Python command, let's go to the compare, right? Comparison data. So these two files, so current df, baseline df is nothing but the file. These are two arguments, right? So those two files will be passed as an argument to this particular function, and then it process few things in terms of label. So I'm comparing the data based on the label and doing an index and trying to get the labels here. And then there was an issue. Sometimes it gave a float variable, float data type, and I had to handle that as well. So that's why I said once you start working on it, you might enhance it on as you do it, right? So in my test, there were float values. I mean, end of the day, you will have float data type, so you will have to handle that and compare that basic difference, right? Basically, what you do in Excel, right? So get a difference and then take a percentage. It's the same thing what you do in Excel as well, right? So get a difference percentage and then put some error handling and threshold. That's it. So and then pass that. So basically, this is a function which compares and then pass that variable into the pass that function as a argument into the final HTML report. So it gets created here. So that's how it's been compared.
Okay, thank you.
My question is not related. So I just want to know how you. Okay. Yeah, yes, I can share that. So there is a challenge if there is a large JSON response. In Google, it will not even show the response file itself. So the alternate solution that I have or I've done is use Firefox. And in the Firefox, there is an setting where you need to change the argument. No, you need to set some argument or variable. I'm not wrong. So that it will load. I mean, you can set a max size of something so that the large JSON files can be viewed in Firefox browser. That's how I handled it. And in the JMeter, okay, your question is for JMeter. So if you want to handle in JMeter, simple, increase the size of your JVM heap size. Because when you do that, right, it hangs, which means it does not have enough power. So you will have to have some more memory. So I increased from 6 gig of RAM to 14 gig of RAM. Then I was able to load JSON responses, but it was still sluggish, but manageable. You need some patience. Cool. Do we have any further questions?
Yes, that is it possible to store the results in database, then compare the results and generate the HTML report?
For that, I am
Better?
using Datadog, but it's possible you can still use open source things like maybe
No, like
Redis.
your Python script.
Yes, it's possible. Let's say you have a Postgres or some database. In the Python scripts itself, you can create a database connection and write these things into that database. Or, but I don't know what is the reason behind you asked only about the database. But if I were you, I would have used only Grafana, centralized Grafana, InfluxDB Grafana setup.
Yeah, but the results will not be available for the future reference, right?
But it
Is
all
it just
depends on
for
how
the
you
live data?
configure. Yes. But if you want to keep something, push something into the database, yes, that's also possible, and you can do it from the Python itself. That's the reason why I went with Python, so that it's much easier to enhance if we need some other things to be done. But yes, possible.
So Ganesh, another question. What is the open source solution which can be used for performance monitoring with JMeter?
Performance monitoring for performance testing results.
Yes, I mean to say like Datadog or Dynatrace, something like that tool. All those tools are mostly paid tools, right?
Yeah. I'll tell. Okay, see. Yeah, guys. I think in my recent assignment, I worked on many things in terms of. Yeah, I think guys, whoever is dropping off, please give your feedback. I shared my LinkedIn profile. Try to give your feedback in LinkedIn post or wherever it's possible, right? So, thank you. To answer your question, Ayan, there's something called as. This is super helpful. To be very honest, I've never seen such a simple tool with most simplest way in an open source format. Okay, there's something called as JTL reporter. There's no much documentation available, but feel free to reach out to me if you need some help. So you can actually spin up a Docker image of this JTL reporter and just pass the JTL files into it. It gives you very good intuitive reports, but basics, but it's good. I will ping this URL. This is completely open source. It does what we need. Yeah, Muni Prakash, yes, that is also possible. But for me, my requirement was to have a static file so that we can keep changing. And if you see in the Python script itself, right, you can also set the static baselines. So that's doable, yes. So even we have an example in the Python script. I have set the filter threshold, right? Similarly, you can also set the same. But I would suggest not to do that in terms of best practice, but it's always better to keep most of the, efficiency of the scripts and all those things that you need to think, right? It is always good to keep everything in a file and in the repo so that the pipelines are somewhat much optimized. Okay, so yeah, I
JTL
think
reporter which you shared, is it only for specific for JTL or can we give any other format? The one which
this
you shared.
JTL reporter, CSV, JTL, everything.
JSON will also work.
I'm not sure. See, I think I cannot comment on that. But what I have tried is through JTL and CSV as well. But if you read the docs, right, it also supports Taurus XML. Yes. I think I want to take one more session where I can also give you how you can run the same test through Taurus. Okay, it's super interesting and it gives you different file. Type of different result file types. You can also get a JSON, you can also get an XML, you can also get a JUnit. And I also did a POC on creating an Allure report, which is super helpful. It's very interesting. I can also do a demo on that. But to answer your question, yes, it has support for JMeter, Taurus, locust, and also n number of file formats. At least what I know.
Thanks, Ganesh. Your session was really helpful. Maybe someday we'll have a sorry, not
Yeah,
demo,
yeah, for sure.
hands-on.
Yeah. I mean, like, see, end of the day, I think, see, this is just to enlighten and say that this is something available now. If people need help, we can help you guys, right? So that is one thing. And also, I wanted to share this knowledge because it was not available, and I was also initially spending much time on this. So I thought, why not share this implementation outside? And let's see, I mean, like, if I can share the repo code and all those things, we'll see further. But I also have further details on Taurus and different reporting formats and distributed load test. But yeah, we can always do a session, but people need to be interested to know about this. Job market is very competitive now, and I strongly suggest folks whoever says that I'm 3 years experience, I'm looking for a job, whoever is even experienced, guys, please do learn about how we can automate the task that we do, right? Either through integration of pipelines or through some kind of job, whatever it is, right? So try to think in a way that how you can run the test in CI/CD pipelines and how we can automate our tasks. That's how you can be valuable to any project or organization. That's my experience, and not an advice, it's a suggestion. So it's very important that we need to get into that stage now. So there is no choice. That's what I feel. I have like 14 years of experience. So if we want to stay at technical aspect, we really need to move into that aspect. So I think Vasant, we have covered enough, and almost like 1 hour 30 minutes now. So
Sure. Thanks, Ganesh, for all your time and effort. And yeah, we'll try to catch up with more sessions in the coming days. And thanks everyone. Thanks for joining the session. And this video will be shared in our YouTube channel, Little Slow YouTube channel, and you can watch the recorded session there. And you can, like Ganesh said, like, you can share your feedback in the comment section. And you can also share the feedback in his page as well. Thanks everyone. Thank you so much for joining. And yeah, we'll meet in our next session. I'll keep you informed.
Yeah, thanks guys. Maybe we'll see you soon with some another session. Have a nice rest of the weekend. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ganesh. Thank you. Thanks, Ganesh. Thanks everyone. Bye.